Now it's time for On Point, where we speak to experts to delve deeper into the biggest news stories in the spotlight right now. As we mentioned at the top of the programme, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff has said that North Korea fired another unidentified as yet projectile into the East Sea. That happened sometime this morning. This comes just a week after the regime claimed it fired a hypersonic missile that precisely hit a set target 700 kilometers away.
The international community was quick to condemn the North for raising tensions last week, and similar responses are also expected in the coming hours. And just in the next few hours, the UN Security Council is set to convene a closed-door meeting to discuss whether the latest launches go against its resolutions. For more on the significance of this launch, we connect to Mark Barry, a North Korea expert and the associate editor of the International Journal on World Peace. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
So like we just mentioned, we still don't have any detailed information on North Korea's latest launch of an unidentified projectile. But given that it just came about a week later since its latest launch, what do you make of this? What could this signal?
You know, it's easy to think that it's another hypersonic missile. My feeling is it could be slightly different than what they had tested on January 5th. Which again was different than what they had tested in September, but it could also just be another short-range missile, another kind of cruise missile. They have to test. They have to test for military and technical reasons, and at the same time, they have to test to be able to make it clear to people that, you know, we're not succumbing to our internal difficulties, and therefore, you know, we are able to test, and it's a sign of the health of the regime. That said, I am thinking that maybe they're not happy that Ukraine and Kazakhstan and Russia are getting all the attention right now.
Yeah, as we all know, North Korea likes to be the center of attention when it can be. But given the information we have thus far, we don't know much about what happened this morning, but in regards to last week's launch, do you think the launch of this hypersonic missile, which they say precisely hit a target 700 kilometers away, means that the regime has made significant progress technologically speaking since its first hypersonic missile launch back in September of 2021?
Well, the tests that we know about, and maybe they're tests that are never revealed and remain classified, and maybe we're not that successful, but I think the ones that we know about show incremental progress as a layman as far as, you know, those kinds of missile dynamics are concerned. But another thing that the tests do is they cause uncertainty and worry for the U.S. and South Korea and Japan, and that's also part of the North's purposes. But I noticed there's sort of like three kinds of reactions. South Korea and the U.S. downplay the launch, and for that reason, even the U.S. ambassador to the UN just before the UN Security Council meeting started at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, she made sure it was designated a ballistic missile. On the other hand, the defense analysts, they like to emphasize what they think is new and what is concerning, and, you know, that's their job. And then, of course, the North overplays what it accomplished, and that's why last week they only released just one photo, not gobs of photos as they had done in the past. So basically, it's also their way to ring in the new year and remind the world that they can't be ignored, especially with the year beginning in earnest with lots of crises all over.
Now, staying with the hypersonic missile launch last week, what are the implications of North Korea having a reliable hypersonic missile? And do you think they're receiving help from outside countries since, you know, it's a very high-tech weapon?
Well, if North Korea acquires a true hypersonic weapon, and they are not the ones to define what is a true hypersonic weapon, it's done by other nations, other experts, but a true hypersonic weapon with its low altitude, maneuverability, and somewhat greater accuracy, it potentially enhances North Korea's nuclear arsenal, which is estimated at roughly about 45 deliverable weapons. They may be nowhere near that capability, as a matter of fact, but they do want us to worry due to our lack of information. Excuse me, and I don't rule out outside help, but it's really not, in my view, in Russia or China's interest to assist North Korea with such a high-tech missile program. More likely, North Korea is figuring out things based on what they've already achieved and on what technical data they quite likely acquire through cyber means.
And if North Korea decides it wants to deploy a hypersonic missile as a credible weapon, do you think that means that we are going to see a bunch more of these tests over the coming months and years?
Well, I'm thinking with the March 9th presidential elections in South Korea, we may see a whole string of them. But I should note that I think there's been insufficient attention paid to the possibility of North Korea exporting its latest missile technologies to a bad actor, particularly Iran. The North's tech transfer can be used as what many political scientists call a mischief factor, as well as, of course, a foreign currency earner. In particular, last month, Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz visited the Pentagon, and he told U.S. officials he had instructed the Israeli Defense Forces to prepare for a strike against Iran. I followed his career for the last 10 years. This man doesn't joke around. He's quite serious. And Israel as a whole remains dubious of any new Iran deal. So North Korea knows that Israeli military action against Iran would affect the entire Middle East region and draw in the U.S. And we should remember that in 2007, Israel destroyed a Syrian nuclear facility being constructed by North Koreans.
And before we let you go, Mark, what about the international reaction? We just heard that the UNSC is planning to convene a meeting in the coming hours to discuss North Korea's latest launch of projectiles, missile launch last week. But how do you think with the launch today, this morning, how would neighbors react to this?
Well, the meeting began at 3. It may still be going on. Perhaps after this broadcast, some news will leak out. There should be no official announcement from the UN Security Council, but Ambassador Thomas Greenfield from the United States, representing only 6 of the 15 members of the Security Council, released a joint statement condemning the January 5th, and she pointedly used the word ballistic missile launch. But China and Russia, as permanent 5 members, are unlikely to endorse any consensus Security Council statement, but will reiterate that real negotiations between the U.S. and North Korea must resume as the best way to resolve regional tensions. And frankly, in that particular context, I think they're not wrong. Things just can't go on like this. That there has to be more jaw-jaw rather than war-war.
Well, as always, Mark, we appreciate your insights and we look forward to having you back on the show, perhaps under more peaceful circumstances. Thank you.
Look forward to it. Thank you.